I'm Joshua Bardwell, and this is the DJI Mavic Mini. It is the very first camera drone that I have ever owned. No kidding. And today, I'm going to tell you why it's the very first camera drone I've ever owned, and I'm going to tell you why I think it is the perfect camera drone for an FPV pilot who wants to get into camera drones to get. If you're into FPV, then I know you love flying racing drones, freestyle drones, or quadcopters, whatever you want to call them. But a lot of people who are into FPV, including myself, love making video content. And that's why a tool like the DJI Mavic Mini is so freaking useful. I've been on shoots with like the Rotor Riot crew. Drew has a Mavic, Stingy has, or had at least, a Mavic Air, and these guys, they would pull out these drones at the end of a shoot. They'd get these establishing shots, they'd get these big overhead shots, and I'd be so freaking jealous that their vlogs would have those shots and mine wouldn't. But I never pulled the trigger before to get one of these drones. And I want to tell you the reasons why I never did that before, and the reasons why the Mavic Mini addresses those, why this is the first one that I've ever bought, and why I think it should be for you as well. The first one is cost. This guy comes in at $400 for the drone, or $500 with the Fly More combo, and I strongly recommend you get the Fly More combo. It comes with some extra batteries, it comes with an external battery case. The battery case even can be used as a power bank for your phone or whatever. So the Fly More combo comes in at $500, and that's expensive, but it's like a half or a third almost of the price of some of the drones that came before it, and it's in the range of what you might spend on like an FPV racing, okay, 2 FPV racing drones. The second reason is durability. You crash a Mavic and it's going off to DJI Care to get repaired. I have crashed this guy. I crashed it into a tree, I crashed it into the ground, I crashed it into the fence, and it's still here. Something about the way that it's super lightweight means that it's effectively stronger. You can crash it a little bit, and if it's your first photography drone, like this is mine, you're going to crash it. And when you crash it, there's going to be less of a penalty. The third reason is size. If you look at my backpack that I take when I'm going flying, there's so much crap in it. And if I were to try to fit a Mavic or even a Mavic Air in there, I'd have to take a bunch of it out. Those are so big, and I just don't want to give up and leave behind the stuff I'd have to leave behind in order to bring one of those with me to a fly. But this guy is so freaking small. Look how small it is. It'll fit in there, and it will barely take up any space, or if I do need to bring like an extra pack, it's not too big. So this fits in with the gear that I've already got. The final reason why I think the Mavic Mini is a big freaking deal is the weight. And I even printed it on the side, 249 grams. This thing comes in under 250 grams. Now, in the United States, any drone over 250 grams needs to be registered, and it's pretty easy. It takes about 5 minutes on the FAA website and costs you $5 per drone. So it's not such a big deal. But in other countries, any drone over the regulations can be so onerous that you almost can't fly any drone over 250 grams. And it's relatively easy to build like a 3-inch freestyler racing drone that comes in under 250 grams. But what are you supposed to do if you want to get aerial photography shots in one of those countries where drones over 250 grams are very difficult to fly legally? The Mavic Mini fills the need. The question that you've got to be asking yourself when you see the low price and the small size and low weight of the Mavic Mini is, what are you giving up? And obviously, compared to something like the Mavic or the Mavic Pro, you are giving up some things. We'll talk in a minute about what that is. But I want to start by just talking about what you get. Because to me, at least, you get the core things that I want when I think about a DJI platform. So, long flight time. The Mavic Mini is rated for up to 30 minutes of flight time. That is under ideal conditions. But realistically, when I'm just tooling it around, I always get at least 20 minutes of flight time. And that's 20 minutes of usable flight time before it starts saying, hey, battery low, return to home, but I could still push it a little further if I wanted. So realistically, 25 minutes in the air, and that's without even trying. So that 30-minute flight time estimate is actually not that far off from what you get in real-world conditions. Position hold. Position hold is, as far as I can tell, perfect. In windy conditions, it will struggle a little bit. It is worth pointing out that the Mavic Mini has a 3-axis gimbal. You're probably not supposed to move it with your fingers like this somewhere out there. A DJI fanatic is freaking out. The camera on the Mavic Mini is 2.7K resolution, and a lot of people in the aerial photography world would consider 4K to be like the gold standard. 2.7K is more than enough resolution to get usable shots. Very few people are watching it at 4K. Most people shooting at 4K are doing it because they want to be able to reframe and crop in and still have usable resolution. So you're going to lose a little bit of that ability, but 2.7K I think is still more than usable, especially at this price point. In windy environments, it can struggle a little bit. I think that's going to be true for almost anything. And physics dictates that the bigger quads like the Mavic are going to do a little bit better at fight. They're just going to resist the wind more due to their mass. But overall, I found it to be really quite usable. Speaking of wind, the Mavic Mini doesn't have the same top speed of some of the bigger quads, so its ability to fight the wind is not quite as strong. But it still is more than enough to use in even mildly windy conditions. Here on the bottom of the Mini, we see the optical flow sensor, and this is useful for position hold indoors. It basically takes a picture of what's underneath the quad, and it's able to hold position much more precisely. I think this is also used to enhance position hold even when you have GPS. GPS can have a little bit of variation, and with the optical flow sensor, you'll get much better position hold and much more precise return to home. This is really cool because DJI did not include the obstacle avoidance sensors. These two little nostrils here are where the obstacle avoidance sensors would be on some of their other quads. And other quads in DJI's line have 360-degree obstacle avoidance. They'll have sonar, or I don't even know what, LiDAR. They'll have sensors that let them detect obstacles like trees and power lines and prevent you from flying into them. As an FPV pilot, on one hand, I'm like, whatever, I don't need that. I can avoid obstacles on my own. But I find myself when flying aerial photography that I'm much more likely to be flying the drone sideways or backwards, whereas with FPV, you're pretty much always flying forwards. And so I kind of did find myself missing those things. I found myself having to pay a little more attention line of sight to make sure I wasn't about to fly into something when I was trying to line up a particular shot. That being said, I have talked to other DJI pilots, and some of them say, I just turn the obstacle avoidance off. It just gives me false alarms anyway. So it's a little bit of a toss-up whether this is actually a big deal that this is missing. But if it is something you were hoping to get, it's not something that's there in the Mavic Mini. The Mavic Mini requires an SD card, and I have seen some other reviewers complain about that. Some of DJI's bigger drones have built-in storage, so you don't need an SD card in them. But to me, I'm used to putting an SD card in my cameras. It's not a big deal, and it's part of my workflow, so I didn't really mind it. The battery goes in the back here. It looks like it's basically just two 18650 cells, but surely DJI has sourced very high-quality cells, and they've had their own proprietary battery management tech in there. It goes in the back of the quad like so. And good news, you can charge through this mini USB port. You do not need a dedicated charger. However, if you've got the Fly More combo, you will get this 3-bay charger and 2 extra batteries. And this is pretty freaking cool. When you put the battery in, oh, wrong side. It shows the batteries. It shows their charge state. You can push this button on the side to get it as well. And it's a smart charger, which means that if you have batteries at differing charge level, it will charge the fullest one first, so you get to be able to fly as fast as possible, then charge the next fullest one, and so on. And on top of that, it's got a USB output, so you can use it as a USB power bank. And if you think about it, that's probably, 3,000, 6,000, it's a lot of milliamp hours. It's a fairly big power bank. If you want to trade a little bit of flight time to charge up your phone or any other USB object, or you could put one battery. You could put one battery in the drone and then plug the drone into the power bank and then infinite energy. No, it doesn't work like that. It's a pretty nice little thing. The props on the Mavic Mini are not the same quick release props that come on DJI's other drones. They are screwed on. It comes with a little mini screwdriver that goes in the kit. It's probably a weight saving thing. Hopefully you're not going to crash that often, and hopefully you're not going to need to change props that often. So hopefully that's not a big deal, but it is definitely worth noting. Here's the controller for the Mavic Mini. It is a first of all, it's cool that it is a hardware-based controller. They're not going to make you do it with a phone app or something like that. You can actually fly exclusively with this controller if you just want to fly at line of sight. The joysticks clip in and come out here. If you have a DJI controller, this is the same as the controller on like the Mavic Air. It unfolds like so, and your phone snaps in here. It comes with custom cables for iOS. This is the one, this is the USB-C one. Like so. Let's get my phone. One annoying thing about it is that it will not hold your phone with a case on. I even swapped out my big, heavy, thick OtterBox case for this thinner D-brand case, and still, no. It's just not going to work. So, I don't know. I hate taking my phone out of the case. I'm sure I'm going to drop it and break it if it's out of the case for even a minute. But there you go. So it goes in like this, and it plugs in like this. The controller has its own internal battery, and it will charge your phone when your phone is plugged in. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, whether I'd rather just run off my phone's battery, but there you go. Now, the app that's used is called the DJI Fly app. It's a separate app from the app that's used with the larger quads, and it's just simplified a little bit for what I've never used those apps, so I don't know, but this is the one I've got. So this is how you would typically use the controller, with your phone in it, looking at the camera image here, and controlling it and flying with the gimbals. The gimbals are surprisingly good for a controller so small. They definitely have a very stiff center, which if you're used to like flying a racing drone or something, you may be used to having a softer center, but I assume for camera platforms like this is par for the course, and I didn't have any trouble getting good camera moves. I did like to switch from mode P, which is performance. The S is sport. Let's see, C is Cinesmooth, and I liked flying it in Cinesmooth mode. Cinesmooth mode basically lowers the rates, just makes it move slower, and for a beginner who's trying to get smooth camera moves and isn't as experienced, I found Cinesmooth to be really good for making me look like a better pilot than I really am. And P mode is position. That's just basically middling rates. Sport mode is super fast rates. The controller has a return to home button on the left side. It has a video record button on the left side, and this is the gimbal position, gimbal up or down. On the right side is the power button and a take a photograph button, and some of the DJI controllers have like macro buttons on this or special function buttons on the back, but this does not. Now, one thing that a lot of people are going to worry about with the Mavic Mini is that it uses Wi-Fi based control. It does not use OcuSync or Lightbridge. And so here we are looking in the app, and we can see it's picking up the Wi-Fi from my house, and it's picking a channel. And people are going to wonder about the range, especially because the Spark used Wi-Fi. There was a DJI quad before that used Wi-Fi and didn't have great range. The DJI calls the Wi-Fi on the Mavic Mini Wi-Fi enhanced, basically trying to tell you that they've upgraded it since that last one that had problems. The advertised range for the Mavic Mini is 4 kilometers, and I'll be honest with you, I'm still not comfortable flying that far, so I haven't tested the range out to 4 kilometers. I can tell you that in the kind of situations I've flown around my yard and so forth, I've had no problems with the range. There have been a couple times behind obstacles, even like flying down the road away from my house or at that park you saw me at the beginning. There have been a couple times where I've been flying in proximity to objects and I've gotten a little bit of video breakup, and I have sort of taken my hands off the sticks to let the quad hover itself. I think that 4 kilometer range is more for like if you're flying up high and far away, and I've seen other people do tests that show that it actually can go that far. Frankly, I feel like the range on this system is usable for the kind of scenarios where a small drone like this, like realistically, you're not even allowed legally to fly that far with a drone this small because you're supposed to maintain visual line of sight at all times. Thank you, FCC or FAA. Realistically, I didn't find the Wi-Fi based transmission to be a limitation on what I wanted to do with this thing, but that's coming from the perspective of like an FPV pilot, and I think that probably a more dedicated aerial photography shooter would feel a little bit constrained. And then again, they're probably going to be using a bigger quad anyway. Now, one thing that people have complained about with the Mavic Mini is that you can't do any adjustments on the video exposure or anything, which I'm not sure if that's... They've said that you can adjust the ISO and the shutter speed for photographs, but not for video. I'm not sure if that's old information or not, because I'm in video mode now, and I've got an EV adjustment, and it seems to work. So I can at least adjust the exposure. Is that really doing it for video? Can I start recording? Yeah, it seems to be working for video. Yeah, no, that's definitely working while I'm recording video. So it looks like you can't adjust the ISO or the shutter, but you can adjust the exposure up or down, and there's also an exposure lock. So maybe that's been added in a firmware update since some of the early reviews came out. Yeah, see, if I switch from video to photograph mode, I can manually set the ISO and the shutter and the exposure. But in video mode, I can adjust the EV and the AE lock. Oh, that's adorable. I didn't know you could do that. Oh, that is adorable. Just discovering new things left and right. Now, as an FPV pilot, I actually struggle a little bit to manage the gimbal on the Mavic Mini. It's just so different flying a quad when the camera is not fixed position relative to your direction of flight. But the Mavic Mini does have an FPV mode where it locks the gimbal position and well, obviously it's not going to fly like a racing drone, but for an FPV pilot, it may let you fly a little bit more like a racing drone and get, well, shots where the horizon is not perfectly level, basically. Those are more like swooping shots. So that's kind of cool. One of the coolest features of the Mavic series is the ability to automatically take certain kinds of shots. So, for example, it could do follow me, where it follows you through an environment, or it could do a shot they call the droney, where it like backs out away from you. The Mavic Mini doesn't have all of these functions. Because it doesn't have obstacle avoidance, it can't do follow me, for example. But it does have what they call quick shots, where it can do they call the rocket, where it kind of goes up in the air looking down at you, or the droney, where it backs away from you, or when they call the helix, where it spirals around you. I gotta tell you, I didn't feel super confident playing with these, and that's why I'm showing you DJI marketing materials instead of me actually doing them. Without the obstacle avoidance, I feel a little bit especially at my place where there's a lot of trees and stuff. It's one thing if you're at the beach and you can just go, yeah, just fly out and just take a shot of me. Or if you're at a big soccer field and it can kind of go around you without any risk of crashing. Without the obstacle avoidance, though, I didn't feel comfortable completely handing control over to the drone and just sort of crossing my fingers that it didn't crash. With a little more familiarity of exactly where and how the drone's going to fly, I might feel more confident doing that. So that brings us to the end of the video, and as always, the question, should you buy it? And I think that the Mavic Mini is the perfect Mavic for a certain kind of person. If you are the kind of person who already hauls around a DJI Inspire or a Mavic Pro or a Mavic, if you've already got that kind of gear integrated into your workflow, I think the Mavic Mini is probably going to let you down. You're going to see its deficits in terms of speed, lack of obstacle avoidance, flight time. Well, flight time is actually pretty freaking good, to be honest. You're going to see its deficits, and you're already going to have tools that fill in those deficits, and it's not going to be worth it to you. But for a person like me, who is first and foremost an FPV pilot, who has always wanted to dip my toe into the aerial photography ecosystem, but never been willing to shell out $800, $1,000, $1,300 for one of those bigger drones. For a person like me who is more likely to crash, and some people say, well, for $400, I want obstacle avoidance on my drone, but I'm used to crashing $300 quads, and the thought of crashing a $1,000 quad scares the crap out of me. But the thought of crashing this guy, it's going to crash a lot easier because it's so lightweight, and if it does break, it's only $400. So to me, that seems like a good thing. The real question I think a person like me has to ask, though, is would you rather have something like the Mavic Air? Because the Mavic Air it's like $800 for the Mavic Air Fly More combo. Double check that price. I'm not 100% sure that hasn't changed. It's like $800 for the Mavic Air Fly More combo. The Mavic Air is just a little bit bigger than the Mavic, but it has a lot more capabilities in terms of, well, obstacle avoidance. Does it shoot 4K? It has 4K. It's a 4K camera instead of a 2.7K camera. It's twice as expensive, but it's a lot more capable tool for somebody who is really wanting to get a little more intensively into this kind of ecosystem. I'd love to hear in the comments what you think of the Mavic Mini. Let me know if you're an FPV pilot or if you're like a DJI pilot or maybe both. And tell me does the Mavic Mini leave too much out and people should really be looking at something like the Mavic Air or maybe a non-DJI product that delivers even more at the same price? As an FPV pilot, does this entice you? I want to know what you think. I don't want to hear myself talk to myself in a room for hours and hours and hours. If you liked the video, I'd love to get your subscription and hit the notification bell. That really does help me out. It's one of the simplest things you can do. It costs you nothing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Happy flying.